creating their own OERs. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the byproducts of that process that turned out to be really fruitful, and hopefully you can bring some of those insights back to your own institutions. Yeah, so we're using Poll Everywhere. I know that you're recording this, so I'll try to repeat everything into the microphone. If you can see it, you just log on to the website, or you go to the website, pollev.com, Caleb Hutchin 816, or you can also text in. So we're trying to get a sense of our audience. I know that there's a lot of different roles out there of people who are attending this conference. Just hoping to get a sense of who you all are and what you do, so that we can kind of make sure that we're always in dialogue throughout the conversation. So tech classrooms. Okay. Is that it? Yeah, so perfect, because we're going to be talking about how to work with faculty. I don't know if we have, I see at least one faculty member out here, but a lot of our presentation is going to pertain to how to get faculty engaged with your office and help you do your job better. We do have a couple faculty, it looks like. Curriculum development, that's what I do. Good. Okay, so yeah, I think that shows us who we have. So this is who we are. We also put it up here because I think you guys are going to have access to the slides after the presentation, after the conference is over. And this might be helpful if you need to get in contact with us. I'm Lindsey Brandt-Bennett. I'm a curriculum developer. We're all at Montana State University Northern in Extended University. I do a lot of different things. I help instructors develop online courses, also face-to-face. I help troubleshoot teaching problems. When we have new instructors come in, I help them get oriented to teaching. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. Caleb, do you want to say a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I'm Caleb Hutchins, and I am an instructional designer. And because of the size of our campus, we kind of do a little bit of everything. We do tech support, we do instructional design, we do professional development. We help Lindsey with curriculum development sometimes. We do video and audio recording. We just do a little bit of everything.
I don't know if I can say it much better than that. Yeah, a little bit of everything. You just never know from day to day what you're going to get. And it's getting the faculty to engage and also making them comfortable about the engagement as well. So there's a little bit of everything that goes on.
Okay, and so we kind of laid it out as well in a couple different categories. We assist faculty and students with D2l, assist with instructional audio and video recording and editing. Jason does a lot of that. We assist with WebEx and other internet-based technologies. So in terms of instructional design, online course planning and design, troubleshooting instructional issues like I was talking about before, facilitate and assist with voluntary online peer course reviews, which we're just starting. And then we also have professional development that we do. We research and promote best practices in teaching. We organize workshops on teaching tools and strategies. We also facilitate a teaching and learning themed book club to promote faculty discussion. So that's something that we just rolled out this year, and it's been really, really fun. This is just a little bit of a snapshot of what we have for programs at MSU-Northern. So some of our biggest programs are diesel technology, automotive, criminal justice. I'll let you go ahead and read. I'm not going to read them all out. Do you have any, I guess I could ask, like what strikes you about these program areas? You can just shout it out. Anything? It's all very hands-on, very career-oriented, right? And so what happens a lot of times is our instructors who come in from the diesel technology field or automotive, they're coming in from the field, with the exception of education, I guess. They have very, very little teaching experience if any. I mean, most of these people from our biggest programs, they weren't graduate student instructors. They haven't ever taught a course before, so they're coming in fresh. And this is one of our instructors who is gonna, he's in automotive, and we're gonna kind of follow his story through our presentation. And his situation sort of illustrates some of the barriers that we have at our institution and some of the opportunities as well, though, for working with faculty. So if we can get it to roll.
My name is Kevin Holford. I'm an automotive professor at University-Northern. Before I became an educator, I was an automotive technician at a Toyota dealership, both in Montana. I worked there about 6 years, but I've been here for 2. I came into this with technical knowledge. I didn't have ability to know really how to build a lesson plan, and how to break apart a 15-week year, and I had no knowledge of how that was done, and so I failed pretty miserably at the beginning. It was an emotional roller coaster that's really makes you wonder what the heck you're doing. So I had to work at that. Initially, it was the pre-made PowerPoint. They are not the way to go at all. Martin had initially lost the 15-minute lectures were gone in the first 15. So I felt like it was ripping off the so.
Okay, so that's kind of where Kevin was starting. Like he said, he had been in the field for several years, and then he's just recently started at Northern. He's pretty representative of some of our. He's pretty representative of our faculty coming in, especially on the technical science side. And so we're gonna, like I said, kind of follow him. Here's our current barrier with faculty, especially ones that are coming in from the field. They love hearing about tools, tips, and tricks that they can use in their classroom. So they'll definitely show up for professional development. If we say, hey, we have this cool new app that you can use, or like, here's a cool thing that you can do in D2l, which is our learning management system. But how do we get them to commit to deeper transformations in teaching? So that's kind of our big barrier that we were facing that drives the OER process that we're gonna tell you more about. So I wanna ask you guys first though, what do you think prevents instructors from coming in and getting more help to commit to deeper transformations in their teaching, to curriculum overhaul, or just totally changing their approach? Because it took us a while to get Kevin into our office. Time, that's a good one. Fear of technology is a good one. Yeah, so time, already have too much to do. Fear of technology, guilt is a really good one, or fear of looking stupid, kind of this imposter syndrome thing, which Kevin has talked to us about too. And so time is definitely a problem. Not enough time. Everyone's saying time. That must be on our minds. Pride, for sure. So these are hard things to address, to overcome. Lack of recognition definitely exists as well. Embarrassment. Yeah, I think that's super representative. Those are all the things that we're recognizing happening and trying to figure out how to get instructors into our offices nonetheless. So this is a general problem we've had, is how to get these instructors in despite their time crunch, despite their fear or their reservations or their lack of recognition. So general problem, now we have a more specific problem of we don't necessarily need all instructors at our university to work on deep transformations in their teaching, but there are a lot that do need some help. In this particular area, IEFA, this is a specific problem that we're trying to address at our institution for getting instructors to change their teaching. Does anyone know what IEFA stands for? Yeah, so it's specific to Montana, but it might be something that you're going to be seeing in your states coming up. And I'm going to let Caleb talk a little bit about IEFA, and you can change to the next slide too.
So IEFA stands for Indian Education for All, which is just a little bit of quick background. In 1972, the state of Montana had a constitutional convention for our state constitution, and hundreds of citizens and teachers and business people and legislators all came together to talk about the issues that they thought were important to be part of the Montana Constitution. And due to the advocacy of some students, actually, some Native American students, this section was added to the Montana Constitution. The state recognizes the distinct and unique cultural heritage of American Indians and is committed to its educational goals to the preservation of their cultural integrity. So since 1972, this has been on the books in our state, in our Constitution, that we are mandated by law to recognize the culture and the heritage and the history of our Native American tribes and to integrate that into our education. Now, for a long time, that didn't happen. It actually took a lawsuit in the 90s, which eventually led to the Indian Education for All Act, which states it's constitutionally declared policy of the state to recognize the distinct and unique cultural heritage of American Indians and to be committed in its educational goals to the preservation of our cultural heritage. So what this did was it led to very specific, concrete policies in our educational system. Initially, specifically in the K-12 system, where instructors and curriculum developers and teachers and school districts had to include Native American content in their classes. And that could include, obviously it would include like Montana history and that sort of thing, but really the law says that all parts of our educational system should integrate Native American culture and history and learning styles and concerns. So we had a few content examples for IEFA. This is more things that you could integrate into college curriculum. Because even though most Montana colleges don't do a good job of integrating IEFA into their curriculum, the law says that we should be. And in the 90s, this led to a lawsuit with the K-12 public school system. And I would be willing to bet that eventually it's coming. It's coming into our higher education system, especially our state universities. This is Montana specific, but other states have started to recognize the value of this. A couple of other states have integrated parts of our IEFA into their constitution and into their curriculum policies. So I think it's going to spread. I think it's going to grow. I think that if you haven't heard about this already, you're going to. But anyway, here's just a few content examples of how you could integrate Native American elements into other courses. So botany, incorporating native plants and traditional medicinal uses. History is pretty obvious, but rather than just talking about Native American tribes, you could talk about the tribal community accounts, the first-person perspectives, the primary source documents about how our tribes experienced history and not just what was done to them. Or a little more out there, but I think really interesting, even in like a criminal justice program, our curriculum could be examining things like the Navajo reservations, peacemaking and restorative justice solutions, where they are integrating their cultural into their justice system and doing things like restorative justice, where it's not about the punishment, it's about making the crime right. It's not about putting somebody in prison, it's about restoring what happened to the victim and restoring the perpetrator and the victim back into their culture. So I think that the content examples are often pretty obvious, but there's also a pedagogical aspect to IEFA. So a guy named Roland Tharp, again, if you haven't heard about him, you should do some research because he's awesome. He's got some amazing ideas. But he spent decades teaching and working with several different Native American tribes. And over the course of his work and his research, he came up with what he calls standards for effective pedagogy. And he has a whole list of them. I think there's like 7 or 8 of them. But a few examples would be teaching in context. The idea that students learn more effectively and are more engaged if the curriculum directly connects to their personal experiences, their home life, their community, things that actually matter to them. Another one would be modeling and demonstration. That means that especially Native American students, but a lot of different minority students learn better through observing direct action. So, you know, an instructor does something, shows them how something is done, models that action or that skill or that knowledge, and then gives the students time to practice that skill or that knowledge before demonstrating it in front of more people. Or student-directed activity, giving students the ability to make decisions in the classroom, deciding how they want to learn a subject, how they want to conduct an activity. And I think it should be mentioned that although he was working specifically with Native American students, most of these standards are pretty universal. I think that you could agree that all students are more engaged when they have some amount of decision-making ability in the classroom. I think that all students are more engaged and learn more effectively if you connect the curriculum to their lives. So in this case, in our case, it's specific to IEFA, to Indian Education for All, but you know, really, a lot of these standards are universal.
Okay, so we have this general question of how to get instructors into our office working on their teaching. We have the specific question of how to get them to be implementing IEFA and to be working with us and also our cultural advisor on campus to be implementing IEFA. And so that's kind of the big question here that we were asking ourselves, and what we ended up kind of finding out was we trick them. We trick them. How do we trick them? We have an OER contest. So we basically, we had actually some grant money to implement IEFA, and we said we could fund up to 10 stipends, $1,000 stipends. We give them 3 months. We said the open educational resource must implement some sort of IEA perspective, either content or pedagogy. So for example, in automotive, there's not going to be a quick answer to how to implement native traditions in automotive technology, but you could definitely use like a more pedagogical perspective on that OER, some sort of activity, for example, that you do in the classroom. Then we said you have to present a poster at our Indigenous Education Conference, which we now have every spring at MSU-Northern. And then we said you have to host the materials that you create on oercommons.org. And so what we did was we came up with an RFP, a request for proposals. This is just, I'm not going to read it to you, but just so you can see what it looks like, we partnered with the Little River Institute on campus, which is our Native American center. Right, so you can go ahead and view a copy later if you'd like. Okay, go ahead. And initially we had a hard time getting instructors to just respond to this flyer with a bunch of text. So I'm going to let Caleb go ahead and talk about what we do. We do this weekly mini professional development workshop, and this is how we advertise it. I'm going to let Caleb talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so this was, initially we said that at Northern, our instructors love getting tips and tricks and little tools and little tidbits of information. And I think that we managed to do a pretty good job of cultivating that relationship with our instructors through an initiative that we call Tech Snacks. I'm just going to briefly explain that, and if you want to talk to me later, I can talk to you for hours about this. But basically, we do weekly 15-minute professional development sessions, usually about one simple tip or trick or tool or app or feature in D2l or whatever, or an event that's coming up, some small specific topic. We offer them in 15-minute chunks. We do it like 3 or 4 times over the course of each Friday in different locations on campus to kind of maximize our visibility. And then we also, I create these little comics, these little comic strips that I send out to the faculty email list every week promoting them. And again, you can talk to me about this later if you want, but short answer is they love it. We like to feature actual instructors in our comics. So this is one that we created to promote the OER contest. And I thought maybe me and Jason would actually act it out. So Jason, you're going to play the part of one of our instructors, Byron Ophis, was a business instructor, and we got him to be a part of our comic. Do you want to read his lines?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to do this. All right. And here we go. I knew I shouldn't have bought that yacht. Now I'm going to have to figure out how to pay for it. If only I knew of a way to scratch up a quick buck.
Did somebody say quick duck, which is in joke because we had ducks in our comics, so don't worry about that.
Yeah. How did you get in here?
Steam tunnels, don't worry about it. Hey, Byron, do you know anything about open educational resources?
Freely accessible lesson plans, activities, and modules that are openly licensed for anyone to use in their own classrooms? No, never heard of them. Why?
Well, the Little River Institute is looking for OERs that integrate Indian education for all, and they're offering a $1,000 stipend to any Northern instructors that create one.
Hey, that means I had and starting over. Hey, that means I'd have to create only 3,000 culturally responsive OERs to pay off that yacht. I wonder how much private luxury helicopters cost. And C.
Okay, thank you.
That was our comment. That was our hook. I keep forgetting to talk into the mic. So that was our comic. That was our hook to get them in the door. What do you guys think happened next? Did they show up? Yeah, but like about 20 people showed up and wanted money. So they were thinking about yachts. Apparently yachts are...
Keep in mind we only have about 60.
Yeah.
That was a pretty high percentage.
So the really interesting thing, though, that we discovered was they showed up, they wanted the money, and we said, okay, sit down and let's figure out what activity you want to outline, what piece of content you want to outline as your OER. And we discovered that they needed a lot of help. They didn't. Instructors weren't necessarily articulating learning outcomes before planning their lessons. They didn't know how to even create a lesson plan. They were coming in over and over and over again getting help with just outlining the process and articulating what they're doing in their classrooms or trying to do in their classrooms. We're going to show you just Kevin's perspective when he heard about the OER, what his thoughts were.
So an open education resource is something I had no idea of what it was. Once I heard about it and what they were doing over in the Little River Institute, I decided I should probably do this. It'd be good for me because I do have certain problems that I needed to address. So obviously, the $1,000 was motivating for me to actually do it instead of just doing it to do it. It was a great way for me to actively improve my teaching, at least in the lecture part. The lab's obviously totally different, being hands-on. Really, my main problem was I just felt like I didn't want to be in front of my students for these 50 minutes, just day after day after day. I felt we needed to work together, and they needed to work together, doing that peer-to-peer, and just really get a little solid learning by one-on-one instead of me and just explaining everything to them.
Okay, so Kevin was motivated by trying to improve his teaching. Some people were more motivated a little bit more by the money, and they did tell us that afterwards. But what was really cool was that it gave me an opportunity to start figuring out what instructors needed help with in terms of curriculum design. I ended up creating an OER guide or template, which basically was a kind of narrativized lesson plan so that if somebody else was going to access this content or this activity that the instructor was putting up on OER Commons, that they would have step-by-step instructions for how to carry that out in their classrooms. So we created a template that was really fun and a good opportunity for me. You can view a copy of it as well at our website if you want to afterwards. Yeah, I guess switch the, so overall, it was a really good opportunity for us to work with instructors on developing their teaching further and implementing IEFA. This is one example of a poster. So we had them create posters for this poster session at the conference. This is one example that a botany instructor came up with. She basically created a whole new course called Indigenous and Early Settler Use of Edible and Medicinal Plants of Montana, and a syllabus actually did come out of this. And this was one of our favorites. It was really cool. And she's teaching that right now this semester. So as a direct result of our contest, we got an instructor to create a new course that was IEFA, had an IEFA perspective and is actually being taught right now. This is another example of one of our art history professors bringing in, he basically identified the problem that all the textbooks that he's using for art history kind of leave Native American artwork out, or even Native themes. So he came up with a way to bring Native artwork or Native themed artwork into the discussion and talk about how are Native Americans being portrayed from the 18th century to the present moment. So that was another really cool one. I brought this one in because it shows an instructor's approach to bringing social media into the classroom. So he talks about how he had this Twitter. Well, I think it was mostly Twitter oriented, but the class is indigenous activism. And so he had students follow like a Twitter hashtag that had something to do with indigenous activism throughout the course of the semester. And then they had like discussion posts that they had to post throughout the semester based on that theme that they were interested in. So I remember one being like the missing and murdered indigenous women of North America. So he had some really cool student reflection, and it was totally student driven. They got to choose the topic and follow it, and follow like what people are, what kind of activism people are already doing on that issue. So that was a really cool one. This one, connections and reflections across courses. This was a criminal justice instructor who told us that she was finding that her students were not able to connect the content that they were learning in different courses with one another. She kept trying to introduce these exercises to get them to reflect on how the content in her course related to their lives or to their other courses. And she was finding that students were having a hard time with that, so she devised kind of a interdisciplinary plan for departments to work with one another to create like final projects that were able to count for both courses. To encourage students to do that more and see those connections. And that's one of those Tharp principles, is helping students find connections to their home communities and to other courses and other parts of their lives. So what did Kevin end up doing for his OER, since we're following Kevin? He did this thing. It's called mind mapping as a culturally responsive classroom activity. And like I said, he was a brand new instructor. This was his first or second year teaching. Like he said in the video, he was using PowerPoints and his students were falling asleep and he was hating it and they were hating it. And so he decided to kind of, as almost like a reading strategy, to get students to actually read the textbook and process all that information. I mean, these are hands-on kids and their textbooks are like this thick. So he had them kind of mapping out content by learning objective on the boards to kind of help them visually organize the content. And then they also did like diagnostic flowcharts on the board based on the content in the chapters. And so instead of him lecturing, he was having them organize and re-articulate the content to them to each other. So teach each other. So you can tell that he was really into the like whiteboard mind mapping theme, because he even used that on his poster board, which I thought was kind of cool. So what we did with all of those open educational resources is that we put them on oercommons.org. You can see how they're listed here, and it gives a little snapshot view. And I think we have 11 of them up there. So if you want to check it out, you can visit littleriver-institute.org and then just click on Open Educational Resources, and it'll kick you over to this OER Commons site. One reason that I really like OER Commons is that it takes you through, it's a pretty user-friendly interface, and it also takes you through the Creative Commons licensing step by step. So you don't really have to know. Like the instructor themselves wouldn't really have to know all the little Creative Commons licensing designations. They just say, I allow, like this can or cannot be for commercial use, and you can change and remix this. So they just check those boxes, and then it already automatically generates a license for them. So So those were some really good products that we came up with, some really good conversation at the conference. But the real lessons for us were that we got instructors into our office to talk about their teaching. We got them to reflect on their process in a way that they don't usually do. Not just plugging in tips and tricks and tools, but actually changing their approach. From our perspective, it was a really good return on our investment. We could have spent twice as much money to bring in a speaker or send people to conferences, giving us basically zero face-to-face interaction with those instructors during that process. So it was. This year I've actually been tallying the time that this process has brought instructors into my office, and it's pretty impressive. I don't know off the top of my head, but many hours with each instructor. It also builds a community of practice more effectively than sending people off to conferences would. So in that way, it's also a good return on investment. We, at the conference, when they shared their projects with one another, I had several say, I just kind of got into this for the money, and now I'm like really excited by hearing what everyone else is doing, and I'm gonna use some of your ideas, and I don't know, we got some really good feedback on that. These same faculty are still coming in, and they seem to have learned the value of what we do in a little bit deeper of a way, I think. So Kevin's still coming in, by the way. And he was kind of timid to come in before, and I think now he knows us. It was a way of getting to know us.
So the OER project, at least the first one, was really my gateway into extended university. Obviously, they're in a different section of campus, so I had to kind of go out of my way to go see those guys. But you know, between the OER and the tech snacks, I started to get more comfortable with working with the people that do work down there, and so that was really nice. And also, you know, everybody that works in my area are very busy, and so I needed to go to see somebody who had a little bit of time to set aside for me. And the brainstorming, guys, within anything I was doing, I needed the help. Obviously, with D2l being our platform that we use, I didn't really know how to use it, and so those were the people that I saw for that. Not only that, and the OER, the tech snacks.
Right. So, like Kevin said, he's on a totally different part of campus, so it got him coming into our office. We also do D2l support, which it made him less hesitant to stroll on over and ask us for help with that and for other things as well. Future changes, so kind of the lessons learned. We're doing introduction videos instead of posters because we want there to be a human face to the content on OER Commons. And just to have that human connection of them kind of articulating in their own words what they did in the classroom is helpful when you have these sort of seemingly disjointed materials. It just helps bring everything together. We also put in checkpoints, so draft deadlines for quality assurance, so I can check in to see how they're doing and if they have the depth of work that we're expecting for the OER. Also, we've brought in expert guidance for content, so we've had workshops, we've had speakers. Also, our Little River Institute director has been working with faculty, and that's really helped her connect to faculty as well. It's given her a lot more face time than she had before because she has a hard time getting them to come over to her institute. We've been holding weekly office hours, and she's been part of that. So that's really helped. Kevin's doing an OER again this year. This is our second year, and so he's going to tell you a little bit about what he's doing this year. We're doing on time. Yeah, we're doing pretty well. We got about 35 minutes, so.
And so this year's OER, I'll kind of give you a little briefing on what's going on there. And so I had this idea of, you know, And so this year's OER, I'll kind of give you a little briefing on what's going on there. And so I had this idea of, you know, I had this 20-to-1 ratio, me against the students, if you will. I needed to have them follow my lead a little bit better. And so what we actually worked with together is we created these instructor-generated videos. And so I just created, you know, based on each category, I just came up with some videos that, you know, pertain to how to use tools or how to complete the lab. And so the students would watch the videos and then actually just recreate the video themselves and submit it, and then I could just review it after hours, which was a great way to, you know, to see what they do when I'm not there. And that's the whole sum of it, is I'm not there. When there's 20 of them and one of me, I can't see everything. And that was really, that's what my OER is all about.
Okay, and he's talking about a lab context there. So he's got way too many people working that he can't have oversight of. That's his initial problem. It becomes an OER and an IEFA opportunity because he basically came up with an assessment method that focuses on assessing students while they're doing their hands-on activities in a better way than having them just fill out a lab worksheet. So this is what he did. He created a demo video. I don't know if we have time to show this one.
Hi, my name is Kevin Holsworth, and today we are going to use a air-powered cooling system. We needed to verify what the cap rating was. This is a Japanese vehicle. It was in 108 kilopascals, which equates to 15 psi. You can see the 100 in the blue and the 15 in the black.
So basically, they can either look at this video on their own. A lot of times in their labs, it's too cramped. All the students can't like crowd around if there's 20 of them and see exactly what he's doing. So he'll show the video, and they'll watch him. And then he says, "I want you to do the same thing." And you create your own video with your cell phone, or he has an iPad that they can use if they don't have a smartphone. And so then he had the students do their own videos. So if you want to show that one, I think that one's kind of cool.
Okay, this is Slate and Chris, and we're doing the system pressurizing test. We've hooked up the air hose to the pressurizer, and we've undone the cap on the coolant fuel tube.
So they're narrating what they're doing.
Hose and the adapter cap to this engine. Slate is going to adjust the tester to 15 psi, which it is right now. It's hard to see. Then he'll flip the lever to the right, locking the pressure at 15. Now Slate will remove the air hose chuck from the pressurizer. We'll look at the gauge again. It's at 15 or close to it, and we'll leave it for 5 minutes.
So they leave it for 5 minutes, and they come back.
After 5 minutes, Slate will open the cap on the coolant evap tank. He will take the tester and put the end where the air chuck is into the reservoir. He'll turn the lever to the opposite way, releasing pressure. And then he will undo the cap from the coolant fill tube. And that is the system pressurizing test.
Okay.
What's cool about that is if you were to watch the entire video that Kevin did, he is doing exactly the same process. He talks his way through it. He talks about some of the safety procedures that they're doing within that procedure. And then they're doing exactly the same thing. They're modeling the safety, they're modeling the professionalism, they're talking about it so that you can assess that they understand what is happening rather than just the motions, at least from Kevin's perspective. I'm not a content expert, so I don't know, but they're just, it's so cool to see them modeling what he has demonstrated, which is one of those Tharp standards of pedagogy, is modeling, practice, and demonstration. So it's a perfect example of that standard.
And it's also, he was having a problem that students were filling out their lab sheets without even doing the process. So this is his way of saying, show me what you can do. Show me that you can be professional. Show me that you can follow the steps and do it in a hands-on way. So that's an actual hands-on assessment. He can grade it. It does take him a little bit longer because he has to grade it after hours, but he said he doesn't care. He thinks it works so much better. So basically what he has them do is he created a Google form. They do it on YouTube. They get their link, and they submit it to him on a Google form. They say what lab they did, what their names are. He gets it all, if you want to show, he gets it all in a spreadsheet on a Google form, and then he knows who did what at what time, and he goes to their YouTube link. And this is the rubric that they use while they're doing it. I guess I should have shown that before, but he has a rubric he has them follow. I mean, this is so much more coordinated, and he has so much more oversight than he did before. And the students are engaged. They really liked it. They like showing what they can do rather than writing about what they can do in an automotive lab. Just real quick before we talk about that, the last thing we wanted to say about what Kevin's OER that's cool is it gave us an idea about what happens when administration comes to us and says, hey, we want to do automotive classes online. How do we do labs online? Maybe we can have those distant students doing their labs remotely with their smartphone, showing us what they can do on video and then submitting that via YouTube. So it helps us as well to get ideas from instructors. So that's the process that we use, this OER contest to kind of trick instructors into coming into our offices and working on things like IEFA. Other things that we've used, book club. All we say is, hey, we'll buy you the book if you come talk to us about. So we have this like teaching and learning oriented book club, and instructors really like free books. So they'll come talk about the book if you buy them the book. Steve, don't tell anyone we're tricking you, by the way. They talk to each other. They get ideas about what problems other instructors are facing and how they're dealing with them, or they're just deepening their community of practice. We also have the Alt Text Festival. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Just like with a word or two.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. A sentence for 5. All right. In 50 words or less, the Alt Text Festival is essentially we're trying to get the instructors to think about different ways of presenting content versus just your standard text online. So using video, audio, and even graphic media. So we're getting ready to host that here in May, and we already got some people that have created some submissions, but they've also, more importantly, been in the office talking to us about these processes as well. So another way of tricking them into coming in and talking to us.
That's fine, no problem. And so I think we're about out of time here, so I should probably just, let's check. Yep, we're out of time. But other small incentives that you could imagine, conference travel, you can do this, you can come to this conference if you participate in this or that. Do you guys have any questions for us? Or any thoughts about how you could use a competitive process to get instructors to implement something that you're struggling with at your institutions? No? Questions? Comments? That's fine. Come talk to us at any time if you have any thoughts or comments or questions. So, thank you.